Welcome to this episode of the Building Texas Show. I'm excited to be in San Marcos, Texas today, talking with Professor Nadim Adi from Texas State. And we ran into each other at South by Southwest. I really enjoyed the conversation you were having with others, and it sparked a conversation between us on what career can really look like. So excited about the conversation, and thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Justin. I think it was fantastic that we met at South by Southwest.
Now, you're relatively new to Texas, but
Mhm.
you've had an academic background really around design and architecture. So,
Yeah.
what brings you to Texas and what are you working on today?
Uh, well, I worked in several countries around the world, and one of the places that as a kid growing up, like I was fascinated with American architecture and uh, American design. Frank Lloyd Wright, one of my all-time favorites. When the opportunity came up to move here and to get to teach design here, I was like, "Hey, that's one of the things I really wanted to go on and do." So,
Now, and when you think about design, you think about some very intricate levels of design.
mm,
I'm a big Frank Lloyd Wright fan as well, but there's so much that goes on in design that I don't think the lay person, the regular person walking by a building or a
yeah.
situation might fully understand.
Yeah, that's so true, and I was guilty of this myself before I went into design school. I'd look at the building and see like the general shape of the building and figure, oh, like what were they thinking? Um, but uh, once you kind of go through the process of studying design, you kind of appreciate the details a bit more because you kind of know the anatomy of the building, if you may.
Yeah.
So you start kind of zooming in on the details and thinking, oh, like, oh, this material is bright. This material is cold. That material is a bit smoother. So one way to spot a designer on vacation or like a design school student on in the wild is that they'll walk up to a building and touch everything. So if you see someone doing that, that's a design student.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Um, and we've been building a lot of new buildings at Texas State. It has
Mm.
been tremendous. And what I have seen is intentional design around the student experience. But I think that goes into any building and designing for the people that plan to use the building.
Oh yeah, definitely. One of the first things we try to instill in our students whenever we're teaching them design is you have to know the customer you're designing for. Uh, I jokingly tell them like the Lord of the Rings reference, like if you're designing for um, Frodo, like he's a very different size than if you're designing for Gandalf. So one is 6 foot something, the other one is kind of tiny. So
And how do we think about that? Do we design for the median?
we try to design for the median. We try to anticipate that anyone could use the building. So we try to design for pretty much most, if not all, body types. It's a bit more difficult once you kind of dive in, like to say we want the building to be used by all. But um, if you look at a building that's 60 or 70 years old, you'll notice ramps weren't a big thing at the time. So someone in a wheelchair or someone who has mobility challenges would have had a hard time kind of using that building. Nowadays, these things are ubiquitous, really.
Well, the ramp is a good example. I think
Mhm.
we had statute that came in relatively recently
Yeah, yeah.
on our ADA statutes or
Mm,
accessibility statutes. But I think about that like I think most people, you see the ramps and you understand the need for somebody in a wheelchair. But there's
mm.
also other instances that we've talked about where that same model applies, but it may not be as evident in ADA standard or in regulatory standard, but it has
Mm.
such a big impact on the user of that space.
Oh yeah, definitely. Uh, the work I do kind of dives more into mental health and how to design a safer space for someone who's living with a mental health challenge. And you kind of quickly learn that there's no one size fits all. But you're absolutely right. Having certain design elements can really vastly improve the quality of life of someone who's dealing with a mental health challenge.
I think we've talked in detail a little bit about someone with dementia as an example, and color,
Mhm.
or maybe said
Yeah,
differently, contrast can make
ex-
all the difference to that person's
yeah,
happiness and their quality of life in the space, all the way to eating.
exactly. Yeah, no, definitely. And one of the things that happens with dementia is that the majority of people with dementia usually tend to be on the older side. So uh, 60 to 65 and older. And by then, your perception of space and the environment is different, and your eyes are kind of losing their sharpness, if you may. So your ability to distinguish colors becomes a bit um, a challenge. If, say, you have beige furniture and the walls are white, you might not be able to kind of see the edges of the sofa or the chair you're trying to sit in, and that might cause the person to think, "Oh, my chair is there. I'm trying to sit there," but they've missed it completely, and that might lead to an injury or a fall. Um, Same thing with food. We noticed that from research that in certain assisted living homes, some of the residents there didn't eat, and when we looked at it, we noticed, well, the plates are white, the cutlery is kind of white, and the tablecloth is white. So to them, it looked like the food was piled directly on the table, and they didn't want to eat. So the solution there was using very bright cutlery and tools that contrasted well with the tablecloth. So it became easier to spot all of these things. So that's one instance of using color contrast to help people live a better life.
It's interesting to think about because I also look at the neutrality that we try to put into staging a home or
Hmm.
selling to everybody, right? Because
Yeah,
the neutral, but it really is independently important on where you are in life, what your needs are, your mental health, your health
yeah.
in general, to what
Oh,
space is going to be. And an all white, crisp space may not always be the right answer.
oh yeah, definitely. I think one of the things we tend to do with homes, and that's my personal opinion, is that it's usually the most expensive purchase that someone makes in their lifetime. And we treat it kind of like a collector. So, well, my kid collects Pokemon cards, and sometimes he would leave the thing wrapped up, unopened, and his idea is, well, these things are going to appreciate in value if I leave them pristine in their wrapping, or if I leave the toy inside its box. And fair enough for like in my mind, it's like, well, you're missing on the usage of this item. And when it comes to homes, to my dismay, we tend to treat them like collectors. So you will see a person who's lived inside that home for 20 odd years or more, who haven't even hung a single painting on the wall because they don't want to damage the walls and damage the resellability of the house. And all the while you're thinking, but you're not getting pleasure out of that space that you're spending a lot of time in.
It's an interesting thing, but I also have to believe that with new students coming into design,
Mm,
it can be difficult to get them excited about some of this intricacy, some of these differences,
yeah.
because I would say, yeah, I'm gonna go design my dream house, or I'm gonna
Mm,
design this cool new modern building.
Yeah.
But the level of design you're talking about is the bathroom layout, the kitchen layout,
Yeah. Well,
spaces where there's risk of injury or fall, or the places where quality of life is impacted by design decisions.
that's true. It's the idea, like the approach we use in design studio is we kind of ease them into it bit by bit, and we try to pair that with lectures that explain to them, well, why do we tell you to say have a certain distance between, say, the fridge, the sink, and the oven or the stove? What's the reasoning behind that? Because once you explain the reasoning behind those decisions, they don't seem as arbitrary anymore, and they start making a lot of sense. Uh, hopefully for, well, for the students and also for the public. So we try to tell our students, well, the main reason you get to know the person you're designing for is when you're presenting your design to them, whether they're like your professor, a client, a family member, uh, then it makes more sense. You're saying, "Well, I noticed you loved, you like Elvis, so I took some design motifs from his, maybe not the bodysuits and the tassel, but some earlier days of his life, like the cooler days, I guess." Yeah.
Fair enough. But how do you get, I think, 18 to 21-year-olds excited
Mm.
about that level of
Hmm.
architecture? Because really, before you and I had the conversation, it never crossed my mind that
Yeah.
there are people out designing for dementia. But then I think about people that maybe grow up in a home that has someone that
Mhm.
is living through dementia. They may
Yeah.
have a real appetite to go out and solve it for others. And my hope is that that
Mm.
can be introduced to people in university, but I
Yeah.
don't know that it is easy to introduce that to students in a university.
Yeah. It's not uh it's not as easy to do. Um However, it's well, uh, usually, like, design students early in their journey, they're more excited about designing glamorous spaces, as they put it. So, your hotels, your shopping centers, your executive suites, and all of that. Um, However, like a big chunk of what we do here in Texas State within the interior design program is we also teach them their bread and butter designs. So things like your uh, residential design, home design, and all of this. And a huge aspect of this is aging in place. Um, so that's where we can start having these elements introduced, because we'll tell them, well, the ideal scenario for a person is to be able to live inside their home that they're used to for as long as possible. And that's where these intricate kind of choices in design become an important feature.
And how does that resonate with students today?
I think I think one of the cool one of the really cool things, once we kind of tie it into um, like uh, tangible examples of aging in place, a lot of them will come and think about it in a sense and say, "Oh yeah, like I would love for for my mom and dad or my grandma and grandpa to be able to stay in the home, or for my younger siblings to be able to use the space in an effective manner," and they appreciate like. These details even more. So when we tell them, uh, "Hey, I'm designing the table this way because I want a person in a wheelchair, for instance, to be able to reach all the way across the table without fear of them tipping over," or "I want someone who can't distinguish colors as easily be able to make their way where they need to go." Um, I think the more advanced studios we start tackling more complex topics, and then the students are mature enough to be able to do that. And we also give them uh, a lot of uh, a lot of choices in a sense. So so that also helps them because it's the same thing with your own kids. If you tell them, well, this is the type of food that we're going to have, they're going to say, well, I don't like it. But
Yeah.
if you tell them, well, we can have this or that, then that choice kind of helps them be motivated about it.
Well, it's exciting to see the growth at Texas State, to see
Mhm.
just so many students at Texas State.
Mhm.
And in your school and your discipline, I think we're seeing more interest come into design,
Yeah.
architecture,
Yeah.
and that school at Texas State. But I worry that there are a lot of people in that generation of aging now.
Mm.
There's a lot more people aging than there are young people coming into university.
That's true. It's one of the I would call it like one of the realities of this age, in a sense, and it's not a uniquely American thing. Like it's pretty much happening throughout the world. W- and there's different approaches to it. So one of the approaches is to kind of try to bake in age proofing into the design of homes itself. So um, about a decade ago, handrails weren't as common in new construction homes. Now it's almost a requirement, if not so already. Um, so that's one of those things. But it's one of those challenges that I think as like as a general population we have to come to grips with. It's a combination of people not having enough babies, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we are seeing that, but I'm
Mhm.
encouraged that universities like Texas State are
Mhm.
investing in these students to really prepare them to come in and solve the big problems that we will
Yeah.
face, that
Yeah.
every generation faces a new set of problems. But
Right.
I'm also seeing the shift in student to AI, to modern
Mhm.
tech.
Mhm.
And I'm a big believer, I've said it on the show before, there's nothing new in the world, there's just new approaches. And so I
Yeah.
wonder, how are you pulling it back to the history of design and still keeping that
Mhm.
fundamental foundation that dates back to the beginning of civilizations for us? But
Yeah.
in today's modern world,
Yeah.
the easy button seems so tempting.
It is. And one of the approaches we try to do specifically when it comes to AI is we tell and this is maybe true for more advanced studios in a sense, is uh, I have to see the kind of steps you took to get from this is an idea I have till the design that you generated. The tools we have now, it's still not a perfect tool in a sense that a student can't type a prompt and have a perfect set of drawings being generated right away. But it does save them a lot of time, especially when it comes to things like visualization and all of that. So, what we tell them is, well, we try to go deeper with them on the thought process. So, for instance, my generation, uh, we had the same conversations about using CAD, AutoCAD at the time versus drawing with your hands, like manually. And now we're having a similar conversation between using AutoCAD, using Revit versus generate rendering things using AI. And our approach, one of the approaches is, well, I get more time to sit down with the student and dive deeper into their understanding of their own design. So if that deep understanding is there, then AI becomes really an enhancement tool rather than a replacement tool. And that's what we're kind of what I'm hoping that that gives them more of an advantage as they graduate.
Yeah, it sounds like it would, and I understand that perspective. It's really
Mhm.
interesting to me that that's what you're working towards,
Mhm.
and that that's the conversations we're having with students, and
Yeah.
really helping them understand where to use it appropriately and where not to use it.
Oh yeah, definitely, because it's like at the end of the day, the like the student is going to use any tools that are available to them.
Right.
And our role as educators becomes, well, um, help them use that tool in a way that would benefit them in the long run, rather than, okay, you use the tool to get the marks and then you didn't develop the skill. That would be a bad scenario for me.
Now, you've done a lot of research and a lot of writing on these topics, and
Mhm.
one of the things that we've talked about is there's great volumes of information in research papers and research databases,
Mhm.
but it doesn't get to the general public in the same way. So,
Yeah.
how do you encourage people to find your work, examples of this design conversation, and where would you push people to be curious about these topics?
That's absolutely right. I think one of the things I like to do personally is public engagement. So part of it is giving talks in community centers. We have a great center near the university called the Price Center, where we routinely try to reach out to the public and give talks there about the research that's going on in Texas State. The other thing is try to develop uh, like any kind of community outreach. In my case, it was using making a series on YouTube to talk about mental health. Uh, uh, it was called Mindscapes. Uh, and for instance, trying to uh, ha- uh, you know published books try to reduce the amount of jargon in our lingo. It's easier said than done, really, because you get so used to everyone speaking the same kind of jargon that you don't think twice about it. But I think one practice that really helped me, that I try to explain my research quite a lot to my parents and to my older relatives, and that has really helped me immensely in kind of simplifying the language and make it more public facing rather than scientific facing.
Well, applying that lesson, and I think it's a
Mm,
wonderful one, to somebody that's listening to this conversation, and
mm,
maybe they're working with someone that is entering early stages of mental health or dementia or
mm.
what those might be. How would you encourage them to have a conversation with that person
Yeah,
about design and layout around them? Because
yeah,
I've learned so much just in our conversation that I think it would prepare me to see the world a little bit clearer in
yeah,
ways that I can help.
yeah. I think one of the main things that really help is uh, talk to the person and understand their wants and their preferences. Um, Oftentimes we fall into the mistake, I would say, of thinking, well, you know, that person is also they'll enjoy maybe knitting or bird watching and such. And that is not always the case. Like that's not the case. Talk to them about their preferences, talk to them about the things that they they think they might need help with, and explaining to them that there is no shame in a sense of asking for help. That's one thing that I think a lot of people struggle with, whether it's related to mental health or related to everyday life. Like uh, I wouldn't be in the spot that I am in if not for a whole bunch of people that helped me along the way. Um, so in the same way, if you're designing for a person, a loved one who is worried about dementia, who is worried about something else, is they're going to start seeing the world differently. And the key to give them a better life, in my opinion, is to try to see the world from their side, or as we would say, like walk a mile in their shoes. And that really is the most helpful thing, because then you develop sympathy and empathy with them.
Well, I have so enjoyed getting to know you in this conversation
Yeah.
and understanding the importance of that line of question when
Mm.
you're preparing a room, building a room, or really doing any project with someone that might not always be vocal about what their need is. But
Mhm.
if you could put it in a different lens and think about how to make their life simpler, more visible, more joyous,
Yeah,
you can really make a significant impact in their daily quality of life.
yeah. No, definitely. And I think it's the little things, like often it's kind of like New Year resolutions. I'm guilty of this myself. I'll make a grand gesture, like saying, "Oh, I'm going to lose 30 pounds or 40 pounds by next year." A better way of approaching it is saying, "Well, I'm gonna, I'm gonna do 10 minutes of walking a day." And
Right.
if it's a small thing that you could chip away at and consistent, it's much more effective than one big thing that you do maybe once or twice and then stop doing it.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
a lesson we can apply to many things.
Yeah,
Uh, Celebrate the small wins is what I like to always say.
exactly. Exactly.
Well, Nadim, thank you for
Mm,
spending time with us. Thank you for
mm.
shaping the next generation of designers at Texas State. And it's always great to talk to a bobcat that is building Texas.
Well, my pleasure. My pleasure. Always fantastic to talk to a fellow Bobcat as well.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. And I look
Mm.
forward to our next conversation.
Fantastic. All right. See you soon.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Building Texas Show. Please like and subscribe on YouTube to follow along as we travel the state building Texas. Thank you to our sponsor, Chisos Boots, and their damn comfortable cowboy boots.